All right, welcome in. 49ers have some good news on both of the contractual fronts. That's Trent Williams and Brandon Aiyuk. And I've got an article on somebody who's playing really well, a rookie who's playing really well, Dominick Puni. And we'll get to all that on today's show. But first, we need to start with Trent Williams because I feel that the Brandon Aiyuk situation has overshadowed what is perhaps the more important current holdout for the 49ers. And I know that Aiyuk is technically a hold in, not a holdout, but he's not on the practice field. He's a star player. They need him back, but they need big number 71 back because he's the best left tackle, maybe even the best player in all of football. And Deshaun Jackson was just on Fox Sports 1, and he said that he called Trent Williams. He was on the phone with Trent, and he reported that Trent is training, and we know that he's training in Texas in that Houston area. It's a detail. Keep that in mind. And he also said that Trent Williams will, quote, be there shortly, referring to the 49ers building. The gist and the mood of what's being said about Trent Williams has been consistent throughout. The 49ers have not seemed nervous at all about this situation. Every single time that it's come up, Kyle Shanahan was like, yeah, he'll miss a few practices. He'll be there in time. And now Deshaun Jackson echoed the same sentiment on FS1. He repeated that Trent Williams is working out, and he's working out hard over in Texas. I don't think that he mentioned Texas, but we know that from Kyle Shanahan has said, I think he's out in Houston. And he repeated the mantra, and he seemed just as relaxed about this whole situation as the 49ers have, that Trent Williams will, quote, be there shortly. So that's the latest that we have on Trent Williams. Now, time right now is going to start running short soon. The thing about Trent Williams is that he falls into a similar category as Nick Bosa, in that I don't think that you need him there all too soon, but you want him there at least a couple weeks before the start of the regular season. So he gets some reps. You have to develop what we call a football callus. You can work out as hard as you want in your own private gym, and you can be in tip-top physical condition relative to the stuff that you're doing at the gym. But there's something about playing actual football, about showing up and banging pads with the defensive lineman in Trent Williams' case. It was the offensive lineman in Nick Bosa's case last year. There's something about doing that builds up an actual callus and gets you ready to go for the regular season. I mean, it falls into the same bucket as Brock Purdy wanting to get some snaps in these preseason games. He got a few last week. Obviously, the 49ers offense was disjointed. Almost all the other starters were missing. But it wasn't about that. It was about getting up to game speed. Purdy even said he wanted to get hit a couple times because he wants to get the juices flowing. So it's a similar kind of situation for somebody like Trent Williams. You want to get him out there and at least, deal with football movements on an actual football field against defensive linemen in practice. And it was the same thing for Nick Bosa last year. He wasn't able to get that because he didn't sign the contract until 4 days before the 49ers began the regular season against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And you hear Nick talk openly about it now. He feels that he didn't quite get that edge that he was able to get in other years. And I think he's getting this year by being at practice and training with football players, doing the actual sport for which all the weightlifting and all the conditioning work is directed. So Nick Bosa learned that lesson last season. He was able to win his contract negotiation with the 49ers. The 49ers, I think, also learned that lesson last year. They're like, okay, Nick Bosa is an A-list player, but it's better off if he's at practice. And they think that Trent Williams falls into the same bucket. So I think that they would want Trent Williams there sooner rather than later. They definitely want Brandon Aiyuk there sooner rather than later. And I have the update on this front. Jordan Schultz reported that only minor details remain between Brandon Aiyuk and a new 49ers deal. I will read you the full report right now. Sources, this is from Jordan Schultz, and I quote, sources, the 49ers and wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk had another meeting yesterday, and talks continue to progress on a long-term contract extension. There has been movement on a deal, but there are some minor details that still need to be ironed out with ownership approval. So there are a couple key words there. One obviously is, or two are obviously are minor details. And another key portion of that was still need to be ironed out with ownership approval. I would think, and I'm just reading in between the lines here, searching for clues. This is coming from Jordan Schultz. If he's reporting that something needs to come with ownership approval, I'm guessing the information is not coming to him from 49ers ownership or from the 49ers front office that is negotiating this deal. Sounds, and this is speculation from me, and I always make sure to make it clear when I'm speculating because there's been way too many false reports regarding this Brandon Aiyuk situation. Way too much speculation mixed up as reporting, and that's not good because that's gotten people thrown off in this situation. But this is me speculating. I would think that this report is coming from Brandon Aiyuk's side. That's just speculation. Again, the 49ers and receiver Brandon Aiyuk had another meeting yesterday, and talks continue to progress on a long-term contract extension. There's been movement on a deal, but there are some minor details that still need to be ironed out with ownership approval. Now, this is exactly in line with our most recent reporting on the Brandon Aiyuk situation a few days ago, that progress was being made. It's obviously now much more likely than not that Brandon Aiyuk remains with the 49ers. It might have been likely throughout this whole process, but there was a lot of fog of war during the whole trade discussion period of this. That trade discussion period has died down. Prior to the trade discussion period, there had not been much movement on a deal. We talked about the fact that late April, early May, those are the last times that there really was positive movement on a potential contract, and then it is stalemate. The 49ers, due to the deadline pressure that I'm talking about, with Nick Bosa last season, with Trent Williams obviously right now, just with the season looming, the September 9th is less than 3 weeks away. With that being on the forefront of their minds, they wanted to break the stalemate with Brandon Aiyuk. And so the stalemate existed up until that was around July 31st. It was the end of July when Brandon Aiyuk had that handshake and hug moment on the field with John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. And it was a few days after that that all the trade stuff hit the media. And according to Kyle Shanahan, the trade stuff actually started before it hit the media a few days. So around that July 31st date, which is now 20 days ago, is when all of the trade machinations really began happening. And it appears that if the goal of the trade machinations from the 49ers perspective was just to break the stalemate, if they were never really actually planning to trade Brandon Aiyuk, if they just wanted to get things moving, well, then it appears that things have indeed gotten moving, because the latest reports, and this is not just Jordan Schultz, this dates back to late last week with a couple of the NFL Network insiders. The latest reports have indicated that there has been movement, that the 49ers and Brandon Aiyuk are close, and that, according to Schultz, quote, there are still some minor details that still need to be ironed out with ownership approval, end quote. I would think that if ownership approval is needed, that he's referring to more guaranteed money. And I'm going to pop this open on the screen right now, what Brandon Aiyuk's contract might look like, because this is what I wrote back in April, a long time ago, back when negotiations were first going well between the 49ers and Brandon Aiyuk. And it's up on Athletic. I'm going to give this to Mike right now as well. He's going to toss the link into the description. You got two potential articles that you can click on in the description if you're watching on YouTube. So go watch on YouTube. If you're on Twitter right now, you can go check out the YouTube channel. If you're listening to the podcast version, you can go check out the YouTube channel. And there are two articles that you could check out. One is this one, what Brandon Aiyuk's potential new contract with the 49ers might look like. And the other is this one. It's from Practice Today, and we'll get into that in a little bit. Why 49ers rookie guard Dominick Puni is impressing even Fred Warner. Some good stuff that came from that 49ers Brick by Brick show. But this dates back to April 3rd. And I think it remains relevant right now. And I think it remains especially relevant right now, given what Jordan Schultz reported about the Brandon Aiyuk situation. I'm going to scroll down and show you guys the hypothetical contract that I devised for Brandon Aiyuk back all those months ago. and use it to illustrate what the holdup is with that needs ownership approval that Jordan Schultz is talking about. So this is my proposed contract for Brandon Aiyuk. I was heavy on the guaranteed money. Why was I heavy on the guaranteed money? Because I believe that Brandon Aiyuk, who's only missed one game since his rookie season of 2020, has shown tremendous durability for the 49ers. He's shown a lot and a lot of reliability to go on with that durability. So reliability plus durability means that you can afford to risk paying a guy guaranteed money because the risk is relatively mitigated. The pathway to a deal that fits within the 49ers salary cap for the 49ers involves a lot of guaranteed money. And that is because guaranteed money in the form of a signing bonus or guaranteed option bonuses stretches out against the salary cap over a period of up to 5 years per bonus. So say this is my deal right here. This is just a hypothetical contract. Say that the 49ers gave Brandon Aiyuk a $30 million signing bonus. Only $6 million of that would hit per season for 5 seasons against the salary cap. Then they could give him, and this is what the 49ers have been doing with these contracts, and that includes Nick Bosa's. This is the accordion style structure. You're stretching out the cap hit like an accordion over multiple years. So with the accordion style structure, the 49ers could give another bonus, another guaranteed bonus, a guaranteed option bonus that doesn't kick in until 2025 to Brandon Aiyuk, and that stretches out to 2029 with a void year. So you could theoretically keep Aiyuk's cap hit down at about $8 million this year, which would be a reduction of $6 million over the current $14.1 million. And you could probably keep it in the low 12 millions for 2025 and 2026. Now, so how does this tie in to what Jordan Schultz was saying? Well, he says in his report, there are minor details that still need to be ironed out with ownership approval. The only thing that ownership, I think, would really need to approve is you're forking over more guaranteed money to Brandon Aiyuk. More guaranteed money means more flexibility. This is why cash-rich teams in the NFL have an advantage, and the 49ers are a cash-rich team. More flexibility within the way that you can maneuver around the salary cap in future years, because you can use that accordion structure if the money is guaranteed in the form of a signing bonus or an option bonus. You can keep that base salary at the league minimum for the first couple of years, maybe even the first 3 years as I proposed here, and then you could stretch that money out later on. So my whole proposal for Brandon Aiyuk was, and the deal for Brandon Aiyuk was the APY, the average per year might be 26, 27 million per year, but the fully guaranteed money might be closer to 50 million per year, or at least over 40 million per year in fully guaranteed money, which would rank amongst the top receivers in football. Now, Justin Jefferson really skewed that market with $88 million fully guaranteed. But prior to the Jefferson contract, the high water mark had been Tyreek Hill at 52.5 million fully guaranteed. So when I made this proposal for Brandon Aiyuk, I said, okay, well, APY doesn't necessarily have to be as high. It could be in the upper 20s, but the fully guaranteed money probably does have to be high if the 49ers do want to maintain that salary cap flexibility that you get by stretching out the signing bonus and the option bonus. Multiple option bonuses are possible. They could add one more. They did 2 on top of the signing bonus with Christian McCaffrey, for example, to really stagger out these cap hits. Now, at the end of the day, the raw average per year might be important to Brandon Aiyuk, and it might be important to Ryan Williams, his agent, because that's how an agent advertises to other clients. And if that's the case, well, the 49ers might be able to just add funny money onto the deal. By funny money, I mean a very large base salary 5 years down the road. 2028 can have a $40 million base salary for the 49ers. It's not guaranteed. It's not guaranteed, so it's probably going to be renegotiated. You see deals like this all the time with a really, really exorbitantly high base salary further down the pipe that allows the average per year to shoot up. Tyreek Hill had a $43 million base salary in the final year of his deal before they redid that. That allowed him to become the first $30 million receiver. So that's usually, the APY is usually not as hard to bump up, but it's the fully guaranteed money that's tougher, and I think would be something that would need ownership approval from the 49ers. So I do wonder if this is all going to come back to my initial April hypothesis, and that is heavy, fully guaranteed money for Brandon Aiyuk, more cap control for the 49ers, and that's how you're able to fit this game of Tetris in, right? The 49ers are operating the year after Nick Bosa won that negotiation against them, and the year before Brock Purdy is going to have very, very big leverage against the 49ers. Everything that you do financially, San Francisco right now has to think about how can we fit Brock Purdy into the equation next year without having to blow up the team. So you're having to contort yourself. Again, that's why I call it financial Tetris. You're having to fit the pieces within those two massive blocks, one which fell last year with Bosa, one which falls next year with Brock Purdy. And one way to play financial Tetris is to literally have the staggered pieces like this. It looks almost like a game of Tetris, right? Signing bonus in blue, guaranteed option bonus in green. The guaranteed money is everything that's shaded in color up here. And I think the 49ers can reach agreement with Brandon Aiyuk if they play their cards right in these situations. All right, cool. Looks like we got a big crowd watching right now. I have the Brandon Aiyuk article up for you. This one, by the way, is in the description. The link is there. Mike has put it there, so you can go check out the YouTube page if you're on Twitter. I'll try to tweet it later on as well. It looks like this after you click on it, what Brandon Aiyuk's potential new deal with the 49ers looks like. Those of you just joining, good news on the Aiyuk front from Jordan Schultz for the 49ers if they're looking to get a deal done. And there also is good news for the 49ers on the Trent Williams front. Deshaun Jackson says that Trent Williams will, quote, be there shortly, referring to the 49ers building. It is August 20th. The 49ers kick off against the Jets on September 9th. Is time running out? Is there a sense of urgency to get this Brandon Aiyuk thing done from Aiyuk's side as well? I mean, obviously the 49ers want to be as strong as possible, not only for Monday Night Football in week 1, but before then, so they could work on some of the cohesion that is necessary to have a good product on the football field. But I think there's got to be a sense of urgency from both sides, especially in this Aiyuk situation. Trent Williams is already due a lot of money. He's obviously getting fined every day that he's not at 49ers practice, $50,000 per day of the holdout. But Brandon Aiyuk stands to lose more in that he's got $14 million coming his way this season, but this is going to be the highest salary, even on the 5th-year option, that he's ever had. And if he's not there by week 1, then that starts to take bites out of the salary. 1/18 of his salary, 1/18 of his salary is gone with each subsequent week. Plus, the longer that this goes without him signing, he's not getting that massive signing bonus and that massive, guaranteed option bonus that we do expect out of this deal. So there's urgency for both parties for different reasons. And I think that it's not a surprise, given this urgency, around August 20th. We thought that this urgency would really ramp up around August 15th, August 16th, the time of the scheduled 49ers joint practices with the Saints. It's no surprise that we feel it ramping up now with some of these reports, including the one from Jordan Schultz that comes on the back of some of the reports that we heard late last week that the 49ers and Brandon Aiyuk are indeed close. Anyway, time for 49ers practice intel. This guy right here, Dominick Puni. I'm sure those of you who are watching right now, since you know how to use the internet, you've been online. A lot of you have probably been on X. That's what they used to call it Twitter. Now they call it X. I'm sure that you've seen a lot of Dominick Puni highlights floating around. Brian Baldinger loved the game that the 49ers rookie offensive lineman delivered. Well, he's given up one quarterback pressure in over 40 pass blocking snaps over 2 preseason games. On top of that, and I don't think people are talking about this enough, Jarrett Kingston, who's the 49ers offensive lineman who they drafted in the 6th round, 3 rounds after Dominick Puni in this recent draft, has 61 pass blocking snaps over the 49ers 2 preseason games. And he's only given up 1 pressure. So the 49ers 2 draftees along the offensive line have more than 100 pass blocking snaps between them. A lot of those snaps coming against first teamers of the Tennessee Titans and then first teamers of the New Orleans Saints. Cam Jordan got some work, for example, against Dominick Puni. Over 100 snaps of work for 2 rookies and only 2 total pressures given up, 1 apiece. That is a hell of a start. So my article today, and you could also find this on the YouTube description, why 49ers rookie guard Dominick Puni is impressing even Fred Warner. And Warner, you saw this on the Brick by Brick 49ers series. He was mic'd up and he was talking to Nick Bosa after he took on Dominick Puni, who's been starting at right guard for the 49ers over the course of this training camp. Almost every single practice has seen Puni with the first team. Warner told Bosa, hey, you know who can move kind of good is the rookie, 77 Puni. He can move good, bro. They ran bounce toss over that way, or a bounce or toss over that way, and I'm trying to run past him, and he was hanging with me. I had to punch and get off him. He's got good size to him. He can move. Obviously, he's young, so he's only going to get stronger. If you watch any of the tape that's floating out there on Dominick Puni, and I've already given you the numbers, but if you watch any of the tape, not only does he have a strong anchor, and I've been saying for 3 or 4 weeks, this is before any game started, been coming on this channel, and I've been saying Dominick Puni doesn't look like a rookie. The way his size, and this goes back to May when I met him. Remember when I first got to shake hands with Dominick Puni and interview him? My initial takeaway, and I put this out there on the record, was this guy is built more firmly than the typical rookie offensive lineman. I didn't think at the time that it was going to take the 49ers an entire year of strength and conditioning to get Dominick Puni up to NFL speed. So I think that's been proven to be true. I think that take ended up lasting and that take ended up aging well. But what we didn't know and what we couldn't have known until Dominick Puni actually took the field in an NFL preseason game was how he would carry himself. Would he look a little jittery like a rookie, or would he go out there and just handle his business like a multi-year vet? And so far, the latter has been the truth. I mean, he's gone out there and not looked like a rookie at all. The stats are one thing, right? He's only given up the 1 pressure over X amount of snaps. But the tape tells an even deeper story. Pass blocking wise, he's actually helped make Colton McKivitz better to his right. There was a play, the incompletion from Dobbs to Trent Taylor in the red zone, where Dominick Puni was looking for guys to block, and he ended up helping out Colton McKivitz twice. Once with a shove against the edge rusher, and then he spun back around, seemed like he had eyes in the back of his head, and was able to seal off the secondary rush on the same play. So it was a great example of the right guard helping the right tackle in that situation. There are other clips around there where Dominick Puni is getting slight contact with a free rusher coming through a gap that I think early in the game, I think Brad Graham, who does a great job at the SF Niners, he pointed out that might have saved Brock Purdy from yet another hit. And we know that Brock Purdy got hit twice early on in the 49ers game against the New Orleans Saints. So Puni is executing small details at a veteran level, which that might not show up on the pressure sheet. The pressure sheet's obviously really, really good for Puni, but he's doing more in pass protection than just what his assignment is. And that's a tremendously positive sign for the 49ers with Dominick Puni at that right guard position. By the way, they're going to need him because John Feliciano, who actually entered training camp as the favorite to start at right guard and was at least favored to be the 49ers' top interior offensive lineman off the bench, he's undergone knee surgery. We just found that out today. Kyle Shanahan didn't give an exact date on his potential return, but it probably won't be until about midway through the season. So you've got no Feliciano. Aaron Banks is already hurt over on the left side with a broken pinky. He's not expected back until week 1 at the soonest. Good news for the 49ers is that Ben Barch returned to practice today, so he might be able to reprise the Feliciano role. He came back from some knee irritation. But, even at a technically healthy position, center Jake Brendel, he has had to load manage here through training camp because of the knee tendonitis, so that doesn't flare back up. So the entire interior is, I don't want to say it's decimated, but it's been reeling from some of these injuries. So, and Spencer Burford, broken hand. He was back doing individual drills at practice today, so he may not be all too far off. But the arrival of Puni, not only to fortify a position room that's suffered a lot of injuries, but also to potentially raise the ceiling and raise the floor simultaneously of a position group that struggled last year. Right guard in particular was the weak spot. Right guard and right tackle. Puni's ability to enter the lineup there, immediately raise the floor and the ceiling of right guard, and also by extension raise the floor and ceiling of Colton McKivitz next to him at right tackle by being a good teammate along that offensive line and helping McKivitz out. I mean, it's a cohesive team sport. His ability to do both of those things has been huge. And that's why Fred Warner is talking so highly of Dominick Puni. That's why I wrote about Dominick Puni. This is definitely a guy to watch. This can help Brock Purdy in almost unimaginable ways. Last year, and I've shown you the sheer efficiency that Brock Purdy showed, even behind an offensive line that ranked in the 20s in pass block win rate and pass block efficiency. The right side especially was porous for the 49ers last year. So just imagine where Purdy can be if they give him more solid pass protection, especially up the middle and especially on that right side. This is hugely consequential for the 49ers offense. And especially given the injuries, the bottom could have fallen out of the pass protection had Dominick Puni not shown up with that third-round pick. Now, let's not forget about Jarrett Kingston either. He might be a little bit more raw than Puni. Kingston wasn't quite as good of a pass protector in college. Puni didn't give up a single sack over 2 seasons at Kansas. But Kingston, only one pressure given up over the 61 snaps. He hasn't played as much starting caliber competition. He's come in later in these games. But there's a non-zero chance that in one fell swoop with one draft, the 49ers were able to pick up 2 starting offensive linemen in Dominick Puni and Jarrett Kingston. And the most fascinating part of all this to me is their R&D focus on the offensive line. I think they changed strategies this year when it came to drafting offensive linemen, because both Puni and Kingston, and I wrote about this also in The Athletic, both of these guys, I'm going to open up that article as well. Let me find that really briefly. They tested extremely well in the short shuttle at the NFL Combine. Here it is. The date on this is May 14th. Don't want to say I called it or anything, but maybe I did. On May 14th, I wrote, Dominick Puni, Jarrett Kingston, and the 49ers O-line focus on the short shuttle. Puni was the 3rd fastest offensive lineman in the entire Combine this year when it came to the short shuttle. 4.40 was his time. Jarrett Kingston out of USC, formerly with Washington State, was at 4.47. So he was the 5th fastest. So they had 2 of the top 5 fastest short shuttle guys go to the 49ers. And Josh Norris had done great work on the short shuttle. I could even read this to you. Football analyst Josh Norris, he works for Underdog Fantasy. He's studied various combine tests and their predictive power for any given player's chances in the league. Before the 2023 combine, Norris reported that just 28 offensive linemen had run short shuttle times of 4.47 or faster at the combine, and that 24 of them had been drafted. Those 24 players, Norris found, went on to start 84% of their NFL games. Okay, so there is a huge correlation between excellence at the short shuttle and NFL starting level success. And the 49ers just so happened to go out and draft 2 of the top 5 offensive linemen from this year's combine in the short shuttle. And both of those guys are balling out to start this 2024 season. Puni with the 1 pressure allowed and 40-something snaps. Kingston working against second and third teamers, 1 pressure allowed in 60-plus snaps. This could be monumental for the 49ers, whose one biggest weakness last year came in pass protection. Why don't we take a look at the 49ers roster right now, give you guys a nice little update from what's been happening at practice and kind of filter in what we've heard from and what we've seen from these offensive linemen into a depth chart oriented view. So Banks, Feliciano, Burford right here. I could zoom in on it by popular demand. Banks, Feliciano, Burford, all of these guys currently are hurt. Burford is going to be back sooner than the other players. He's already doing some individual work. While they're out, the rookie Dominick Puni, shaded here in green, has been able to take over the right guard spot. And now I would say that it's very likely that he starts at right guard for the 49ers. McKivitz has looked better. The one spot where they were bad on Sunday against the Saints was Jalen Moore's spot, the backup left tackle position. So that's why they need Trent Williams back. Williams obviously fills a massive, massive hole. Well, good thing that Deshaun Jackson said that Trent Williams will, quote, be there shortly. That's the good news on the Trent Williams front. Then I think there still is a concern at center. And I think that the John Feliciano surgery and that knee injury has exacerbated the concerns at center because Jake Brendel needs to be better than he was last year. They need Brendel to have a bounce back season. They needed him to play more like he did in 2022 than he did in 2023. He's been missing every few practices with the load management for the knee tendonitis. The other option at center had been John Feliciano, who's actually started there in the past before for the New York Giants. But he's now going to be on the shelf for probably about half the season. So your next option at center looks like Nick Zakelj. Now, we've seen Nick Zakelj get some first-team reps with center. Is he going to be able to be effective there? We'll see. But that's the next line of defense after Jake Brendel, and it's going to be fascinating to me to see how the 49ers shake that out. They're also having a swing tackle battle with Chris Hubbard and Brandon Parker. Drake Nugent, probably a center of the future for the 49ers. I do think that Ben Barch's return to practice, and he did return to practice so we can eliminate the pink shade from Ben Barch's name. I do think that return to practice has given the 49ers a nice insulation along the interior line, because since you're already missing Burford and John Feliciano and Aaron Banks, it was getting precariously thin along the inside. In fact, Nick Zakelj, even though he's better at center than guard, had to play left guard and has had to play left guard for the first team right now while Aaron Banks has been out. I do think that Barch makes the 53 now, given all of these injury issues on the interior. Feliciano, I don't think will make the 53. I think he's going to go on injured reserve. So we can go ahead and make that move right now. It probably won't be official until the cut down, which is next week. So they can carry him on the 53-man roster eventually with a return to play designation. But I'll put Feliciano down here on the IR list for now, just so we can make sense of the 49ers roster. So he's no longer in this slot, and we could put Ben Barch in this slot. They'll probably pick between Hubbard and Parker, unless they like Jalen Moore so much that neither Hubbard nor Parker makes the 53. There are going to be major decisions for the 49ers coming next week. And, a lot of those 49ers decisions are going to be made by special teams. So speaking of special teams, this is how the punt return battle was looking at practice today. That's Jacob Cowing, who I believe is the favorite to start for the 49ers at punt returner. Look at Cowing's frame. He is definitely thicker than Ray McLeod, which I think gives him more offensive adaptability for the 49ers. Ronnie Bell is also competing for that spot. And, Ronnie has looked shakier in that spot already in-game action last season. Cowing also fielded punts from a left-footed punter and a right-footed punter on a windy afternoon at Levi's and did fine for the 49ers against the Saints. So big arrow up for him. Trent Taylor, I would think, and that's number 19. I think that he is the favorite for the practice squad spot for the 49ers. But we saw the electric performance from Cowing. If he can give you stability on special teams, he's dealing with a little bit of wind today. If he can give you that stability on special teams, I really, really do think that the most efficient roster lies with Cowing on it. Ronnie Bell's going to muff this one. That one bounced there in between his legs. And I know Ronnie's looked better over the course of training camp. He definitely has looked better than he did last year. I think everybody held their breath anytime Ronnie Bell was back there for a punt. But Jacob Cowing has looked, I mean, it's been sterling from Jacob Cowing over all of these practice reps at punt return. And then you saw him. The Saints used two punters. They used a left-footed punter and a right-footed punter, and it's not easy. On a game between 5 p.m. and 8 p.m., Levi Stadium, it's there on the southern tip of San Francisco Bay. It's open to the wind, and then those gaps in the upper deck allow that wind to swirl. Robbie Gould would always talk about the challenges that came with kicking at Levi's Stadium. Well, it's tough to return punts there, and floor is going to be more important than ceiling at punt returner. You have to avoid the big screw ups. You have to avoid the gaffes at that position. Ceiling is great, and I think Jacob Cowing has it. I mean, he was the fastest receiver in the first 5 yards in this NFL Combine, so he hits 15 miles an hour on his burst on the first 5 yards of the 40. That can play really nicely at punt returner, but it doesn't matter if you're going to muff one of every 15 punts. It just can't happen. I mean, Trent Taylor didn't muff a single punt in his time with the 49ers from 2017 to 2020. So that's the baseline. You've got to be reliable as far as catching the football, and then you can add the explosiveness. So somebody like Trent Taylor, I think, great baseline, not a lot of explosiveness. Somebody like Jacob Cowing has a lot of explosiveness if he can show the baseline, and I think he returned 18 punts in college, so he has some experience there. But if he can show the baseline that he's shown us with the first preseason or the second preseason game, and if he can continue showing that moving forward, then I do think that he is one of your 6 receivers. And take a look at this. This is the receiver room that I have projected for the 49ers 53-man roster. Aiyuk, progress being made on that front. They're close, according to Jordan Schultz. Deebo Samuel, Juwan Jennings, who was working off on the side today. I'm sure he'll be back in no time from that oblique injury. Ricky Pearsall, not going to practice this week. Pearsall, by the way, he might be the inactive out of these guys on game day because he's not going to see any action in the preseason. So it's going to be really tough to get him fully up to speed as a rookie with the offense. Cowing gives you some special teams adaptability as your potential punt returner. And then Chris Conley. And Conley also gives you special teams adaptability if you're the 49ers. He was an excellent, excellent gunner in the Super Bowl. That work has not been forgotten from Chris Conley. And I think that he is an excellent backup X receiver. Fits in seamlessly behind Brandon Aiyuk. So I think that rounds out your 6. Then, somebody like Trent Taylor, great practice squad option. You could call him up weeks 1, week 2, whenever you need him, as somebody who's going to prevent disaster, returning punts in case Cowing gets hurt or in case Cowing is shaky as a rookie early in the season. You can carry another receiver on the practice squad. Maybe you carry Robbie Chosen on the practice squad. Maybe you even say, hey, Danny, we're going to cut you to Danny Gray. And then you say, well, we want to carry you on the practice squad. Same thing potentially to Ronnie Bell. You have options. It's 16 players big. But the reason I say Robbie Chosen is because he might be the fastest 49ers wideout right now in a straight line. The most impressive splash play of practice today was Brock Purdy throwing deep to Robbie Chosen. 60-yard touchdown. Deommodore Lenoir on the coverage. Jair Brown on the coverage. Chosen had 2 steps on both of them. Sprinted into the end zone. Great throw from Purdy. My issue with Robbie Chosen is that, he's slimmer. He's definitely slim. And the 49ers need that receiver position to block. Ray McLeod was also a slim player. That's why I think that Jacob Cowing, we'll take one more look at Cowing right here, is so intriguing. He's obviously not tall, but he's obviously not skinny. I mean, he's got some real muscle on him. I think that he might be a little bit more versatile than Ray McLeod was. Maybe not just a gadget weapon, maybe something a little bit more than that from Jacob Cowing. But anyway, Robbie Chosen, I know that he played in the Miami system last year. That's Mike McDaniel, so he probably knows his way around what the 49ers are doing offensively because those two systems are similar enough. I just find it hard to believe that with the frame that he has, he's going to be able to be a really effective run blocker. Now, he's a burner. When Robbie Chosen, then known as Robbie Anderson, came out of Temple in 2016, he ran a 4.36 40 at his pro day. He's 31 years old now, so you say, okay, maybe he's lost a step. Not on the go ball today. He just blew by Lenoir. He blew by Jair Brown on the safety help, and Purdy put it in a bucket. Nice practice today, by the way, from Brock Purdy. 12 of 13. was sharp. They didn't wear full pads. It was an easier session. But Brock has had a really, really good summer. He's been accurate. I think he's been pushing new boundaries, throwing downfield. The deep pass has seemed to be an emphasis for the 49ers. And hey, I could bring this back to the start. If they get good pass protection and improved pass protection from one or both of the guys that I just put up on your screen, Brock Purdy's going to have more time to throw deep. And guess who the most accurate deep thrower in the NFL last year was? Brock Purdy. Completed 60% of his passes that traveled 20 yards or more in the air in 2023. That was the highest number that we'd ever seen on record from anybody. Like Pro Football Focus tracked this 20, 25 years back. Nobody had ever been over 60%. Most quarterbacks are under 50%. And Purdy, he was at 64, I think, up until the last week or so. So Purdy coolly registered a 60% deep pass completion rate. So, I mean, the guy had a sensational year. The 49ers only expect him to get better. One way to get better play from Brock Purdy would be to protect him better. I mean, I got to find the XY chart. Every time I talk about the 49ers offensive line, I have to find the XY chart that shows Purdy's dot up in the upper left with efficiency above everybody else, but the pass protection also below most other teams. So he was an outlier last year in how he was able to overcome poor pass protection. That doesn't mean that he wouldn't be better with better pass protection, though. He might have been an outlier dealing with what he had to deal with last year, but you always want to do a better job protecting your quarterback. You don't want Brock Purdy having to execute Houdini acts just so he can keep the line moving for the 49ers offense. I'm going to turn this to a short 49ers Q&A. Dinner tonight's going to be at the Blue Whale. It's on Union Street. I'm really looking forward to it. I've heard great things about this restaurant. So if you see us out tonight, say hello. Going to check out Cow Hollow and some good old San Francisco seafood. I'm not going to show any food on this show because I've hardly eaten today. I had to write this article on Puni. I had to head down to the 49ers practice. I swam in the bay earlier today. I have to, I'm embarrassed to say I wear a wetsuit for the first couple days back. The wetsuit's coming off tomorrow because you got to be tougher than that. You can't wear the wetsuit. I mean, the water, I think it's probably in the high 50s or the low 60s right now. A lot of seals out in Aquatic Park. Been pretty neat. I told that story the other day where I swam up to the dock and I was like face to face with two seals who were looking at me really confused. It's like we had reversed roles. They were the land creatures. They were on the dock and I'm sitting there looking up at these seals, these harbor seals from the water. It'll be a good time when we do a show from the water. Those of you who are watching, I know that we got a new audience. If the 49ers win the Super Bowl, show from the boat heading out to Alcatraz is in order in February. And then I'll swim back and I'll jump in after the show. Then we'll swim back. But I'm not doing something that crazy in the middle of February without a wetsuit unless there's an occasion to mark. And I think the occasion would have to be the 49ers kicking the door down and actually winning the Super Bowl this time around. Boy, we got a lot of you watching right now. I'm going to go to the questions, okay? If you want to ask a question, go to the YouTube. If you're on Twitter, you can't ask a question because I'm not going to see it. So if you want to ask a question, go to the YouTube. If you're watching this on the podcast version, well, sorry, I can't see your question if you're just listening in your car on a podcast. But if you know, it's all cross-connected. If you do want to listen to this in podcast form and you're watching on video, it's called the Lombardi Lounge. It's on Spotify and it is also on Apple Podcasts. Everywhere that you get your podcasts, you can get the Lombardi Lounge. All right, I'm looking through here to see if there are any good questions. We have a question about how is Greenlaw's health. He's out there at practice some days, not participating. He's in sweats, but I think he's still on track. Nobody expected him to be back for week 1, though. Greenlaw was going to be more of a midseason ad. I mean, he didn't tear his Achilles until the Super Bowl. Horrific timing on many fronts. It was bad timing for the Super Bowl, and it was bad timing for his early 2024 availability. Who is QB2? That's a great question. I think that's a neck and neck battle. I think that they're still determining that. Remember this time last year, they had already determined that Sam Darnold had beaten out Trey Lance. That wasn't nearly as close. It was close for a while, and then Darnold really separated himself, especially down the stretch of training camp. So then they traded Lance right around this time, around the time, I think it was on the day of the second preseason game, actually, to the Dallas Cowboys. This year, it's fascinating because I can tell you for a fact the 49ers love Brandon Allen, and I think he's been doing a lot of good stuff, and he's been in the system, which is really important as well. He threw Ronnie Bell open. That might have been the most impressive pass of the game on Sunday. Ronnie Bell was running the deep out. It was covered. Brandon Allen bought a little bit of time, little wiggle in the pocket, and then he threw the up on the deep out, which was improvised. And Ronnie Bell knew what was happening. He broke up field. He couldn't hang on to the football, but it was still an awesome pass from Brandon Allen, who also showed a Houdini act of his own to get away from a rush on a different play in that quarter. Now, Josh Dobbs is the one who had the electric performance. That's the one that all the fans remember. I remember it. Hell, I mean, he was running forever on some of those across the entire field. Remember that a football field's 53 1/3 yards wide. People don't, there's an illusion that makes it seem a little bit narrower than that. But when a quarterback is running hash to hash or sideline to sideline, he could run upwards of 70 yards on a play, right? And I think on that play, Dobbs probably hit 60 or 70 total yards because he turned it upfield for a first down, but he also had to cross almost the entire field. And then he shook off the tackler when he tumbled into the end zone. There was some awesome stuff with his legs, plus the pump and go on the throw to Jacob Cowing. That was dropped in a bucket. You have to love what you saw from Josh Dobbs in that game, both on schedule and off schedule. But this QB2 spot is going to be determined by the on schedule play. The off-schedule stuff is a bonus, and the 49ers love that. Obviously, they loved it when Brock Purdy delivered it for them last year down the stretch in the NFC Championship game. He did it during the regular season as well. But you've got to be able to play within structure, and I think Josh Dobbs has made great strides over camp, and I think that Brandon Allen started a little bit ahead of him. You're also going to have to take into account the fact that other teams may want to poach one of these two guys. The Tennessee Titans might be interested in somebody like Brandon Allen if the 49ers cut him and try to bring him back to the practice squad. So I think that there is a rising chance that the 49ers carry all three of these QBs on the 53-man roster. Now, it's interesting because there's a rules change this year that the emergency third quarterback can come from the practice squad without taking up a 53-man roster spot. That might give the 49ers more flexibility, but it still does not protect the quarterback who is cut from being poached. And I think that the 49ers of all teams would like to value the stockpiling of assets at the quarterback position. They stockpiled assets there in 2022, and that's how Brock Purdy was able to get his shot, and he turned into an MVP finalist. And if it's the most important position, even if the roster is crowded elsewhere, and you like all three guys, why not continue stockpiling assets by keeping Purdy, by keeping, obviously you're going to keep Purdy, but by also keeping Josh Dobbs and by keeping Brandon Allen. And if you like Tanner Mordecai, I think that you can probably sneak him through to the practice squad. I think that carrying 4 quarterbacks on the 53 would be excessive, but maybe they keep 4 in the building, 3 on the 53 and 1 on the practice squad. And then we see who they determine to be QB2. That to me is still up in the air for the 49ers. Might be a big evaluation period for them on Friday night in Las Vegas. Mordecai might have the strongest arm out of all these guys. He could really spin the ball. And he ran a 4.48, didn't he? Coming out of Wisconsin. So Wisconsin seems to be producing some fast players. Isaac Guerendo was back at practice today. That's a 4.3, 4.4 guy. He was at Wisconsin before he came over to Louisville, rookie running back. And Tanner Mordecai, the rookie quarterback, had a very, very fast 40 coming out as well. So you have to remember when you say that you highly doubt that Mordecai wouldn't be claimed by somebody, you have to remember that teams have limited roster space. So yeah, the 49ers might have more limited roster space than anybody because they have such a good roster, but Other teams, it's not like they're just totally devoid of talent and they're ready to poach anybody that the 49ers cut. Yeah, there's certain players the 49ers are going to have to be careful with, but there are limited spots around the entire NFL. So, yes, you can get some guys through to the practice squad. I think that Mordecai would be such a possibility for the 49ers. All right, everybody, thank you so much for watching. Today's practice intel is right here. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're on Twitter, you could go ahead and follow on Twitter if you're on YouTube. This is, by the way, this is my old Brandon Aiyuk article. Today's practice report is right here. No. Today's practice report is going to be, drum roll, right here. That's my page on The Athletic. Why 49ers rookie guard Dominick Puni is impressing even Fred Warner. But we had the updates on Trent Williams and Brandon Aiyuk. Deshaun Jackson said that Trent Williams will be there shortly. Messaging there remains consistent. Nobody seems to be worried about Trent Williams not showing up. He's working out in Houston, so he's getting ready for this season. Obviously, the 49ers would like him in the building sooner rather than later. And Jordan Schultz reports that only minor details remain between the 49ers and a Brandon Aiyuk deal. Details that must be approved by ownership, which makes me think fully guaranteed money, which is something that the 49ers can use to their benefit in terms of working around the cap, because you prorate that guaranteed money through signing bonus. So it seems to me that the 49ers and Brandon Aiyuk are on a good track. Anyway, check out the 49ers practice intel. Subscribe to the YouTube. Go and check out the articles, and you can subscribe to The Athletic as well. They are linked in the description. I'm off to dinner. It's time to head to the Blue Whale. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to everybody soon.